How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video. I've been getting a lot of messages from people asking for tips and tutorials for building LEGO MOCs. So I'm going to try to do more of these styles of videos where I go over tips that have really helped me improve my MOC building skills as well as my design process. This video in particular will be less about tutorials and more about ideas and theories that have really helped me find my style and improve my MOCs. I don't want this to sound like this is the only way to build LEGO MOCs. I'm just going over things that have really helped me that I want to share with you in the chance that it also resonates with you and helps you find your style. My first tip is that bigger isn't always better. Massive LEGO MOCs are obviously very cool and require a lot of skill and planning. However, just because something is big doesn't necessarily mean it's a quality MOC. There are some LEGO MOCs that are built on 16 by 16 plates that impress me far more than ones that fill rooms. What I'm really trying to say is don't let those massive MOCs you see or huge rooms people have with giant LEGO cities discourage you from building. The majority of people cannot afford those setups and cannot afford all the LEGO bricks it takes to build those kinds of LEGO MOCs. When I say don't let it discourage you, I mean don't let those things stop you from building what you can. A small LEGO MOC can be just as impactful and inspiring to a person as a large MOC. Being in a community that is so far-reaching and really has no boundaries in who can be a LEGO fan or builder, it can feel overwhelming when you see people who have everything, and it may seem like the more you have, the better builder you are, and that is not true. Use what you have and be resourceful. Having limitations and boundaries can truly help you become more creative and a better problem solver. An example of a smaller build of mine I really enjoy is Cyril's apartment from my Andor series. This MOC is small, however, I think it packs a punch, especially if you are a fan of the show. Even if you aren't a fan, it still is a great looking sci-fi interior. It's a clean and simple looking MOC, however it still features some complicated techniques and lots of intricate details. Some other smaller MOCs of mine I really like are from my Batman series. My second tip is that too much detail can be distracting. I remember when I first started seriously building LEGO MOCs a couple years ago, I would get so caught up in making things as detailed as possible and adding so many greebled parts and textures. It ended up making my MOCs look super messy and cluttered. Looking back at them, I feel like you couldn't even see all the details I put into the MOC because it was so messy and over-textured. I feel overwhelmed by looking at them now. It can be hard because I'm sure you have all these ideas and want to fit as much as you possibly can into one MOC, but be smart about where you want your highly detailed parts. Come up with a reason or story as to why a certain part of your MOC needs to be highly detailed, textured, or greebled. Also, have a balance between the detailed parts versus the more simpler or cleaner looking parts. This will make your MOC a lot more visually appealing. This is an example of a MOC that is way too detailed in my opinion. There is too much going on and it is not visually appealing. There are some fun parts to this MOC, but they can be hard to find. I again was trying to do too much all at once. Here's an example where I was a little bit more strategic about adding detail. As you can see, the middle and top of the MOC are more simple and sleek. Towards the bottom is where I added all the texture and greebled bits. It makes sense to the story of the MOC too, because the bottom is where all the technical parts of the city would be. It creates a much more balanced MOC. The third tip is build simple and focus on quality over complicated. This goes off the last tip a little bit in that too many crazy techniques can also be distracting. Sometimes the most complicated techniques are the ones you barely notice in a MOC. They are the ones that fit seamlessly into your layout. Kind of similar to in movies that the best CGI is when you don't know it's CGI. A good example of this is my Tatooine MOC from a couple years ago. I remember I was really short on tan bricks when I was building this, so I had to be really smart about how I used the parts. This goes back to my first tip, that having limitations can produce the best results. This is also a very detailed MOC, but it's not overwhelming at all, and the details are incorporated well into the layout. The building itself is relatively simple and the walls are all basic brick building. I also think having all the studs be the sand and the building be mostly studless creates a very balanced and quality MOC. Tip number 4 is what I call LEGO color theory. Using too many colors in your LEGO MOC can be distracting and overwhelm people. This doesn't mean you can't use colorful pieces, but I recommend picking out the colors you're going to use before you even start building, or just have a rough idea of the color scheme. Pick out 3 colors that will be your main colors and that will make up majority of the mock. After that, you can choose accent colors that will enhance the build. The more vibrant or contrasting the accent colors are, will make these parts of the mock stand out more. Complementary colors are great for this because they create a high level of contrast and make visual elements stand out. This contrast draws in the viewer's eye and can make essential elements more noticeable. Think about the parts of the mock you want to stand out or the parts you want to blend in more. Another color tip is using analogous colors. These colors are side by side on the color wheel. Analogous color schemes create a visually pleasing and calming display. Analogous colors are great when building landscapes, since analogous color schemes are often found in nature. They are great when you want different shades. This landscape mock of mine features analogous colors, since turquoise and purple are near each other on the color wheel. I made the minifigure orange though, which stands out a lot because orange and bluish colors like the turquoise are complementary. This landscape mock again features a lot of analogous colors because it was made with a lot of blues and purples. Here's one other mock with analogous colors. For this mock, I used a lot of monotone colors as my main colors, like dark bluish gray and light gray. I then used white, sand blue, and medium blue as accent colors. The accent colors do a great job breaking up some of the gray color. They don't take away from the mock though, or distract you. They actually draw your eye in more and enhance the mock. My 5th tip is balance. A balanced mock is very pleasing to the eye. Balance doesn't necessarily mean symmetry or having an even number of something, but the form of your mock should feel balanced down to the little details and accessories you have. Balance is the distribution of visual weight of objects, colors, texture, and space. If the design was a scale, these elements should be balanced to make a design feel stable. Here's an example of an unbalanced mock of mine. There is a lot going on. The layout of the mock just doesn't make a ton of sense. The explosion is cool, but the vehicle and explosion are too big. The buildings behind that have a lot going on. These 4 parts are a bit overwhelming and they are all sticking out. I also hate this little bit of dark tan. It does not fit in. The colors I used didn't really go together super well. I also think the minifigure placement is really poor and I used too many. Here's an example of a really balanced mock of mine in my opinion. This is Morlana 1 from my Andor series. I like how it is made up of these 2 structures and is split in the middle with a staircase. I used a lot of monotone colors like light bluish and dark bluish gray and black. This creates a dark atmosphere which represents this scene well. I like how these 2 walls feature the same window, power box, and light fixture. This creates nice little end caps for the mock. I also really enjoyed the black on top of the mock and bottom. It draws your eye into the center of the mock and makes it feel contained. I also really enjoyed the clusters of detail over here on the left, especially these 3 bags. It gets balanced out by the little cluster of details and accessories on the right side. The 6th tip is minifigure placement. Minifigure placement is important. Minifigures can add so much personality and action to a mock. I've been noticing a lot of people sleeping on minifigures and minifigure placement in their mocks. Think about where you want the minifigures to go while you're building the mock, or even before while you're sketching and preparing to build the mock. I typically have my minifigures picked out and know where they're going to go on the mock before I even start building. You don't want to spend all this time building and then throw a bunch of random minifigures on that covers up all your hard work. You also don't want to add so many minifigures in the mock that it will be crowded and distract the viewer from the actual Lego. Again, you want it to be balanced. Minifigures shouldn't be the main part of your mock, but they should enhance the mock and enhance the story and action surrounding your mock. Minifigures have so much personality to them. Use that to your benefit. I also recommend coming up with your own minifigure designs. I'm so much more interested in mocks when they have fun minifigure designs. I thought I did a really good job with minifigure placement in my Andor series. They captured the scenes really well, even when the scene's action was more subtle. Here is an example where the minifig placement was a lot more chaotic. These 2 builds were pretty early on in my mock building days. My 7th tip is realism or Legoism. Realism is an artistic approach that seeks to represent reality as accurately and authentically as possible. Lego is not a perfect representation of our world. The sets we buy are not to scale with real life, and minifigures are not a perfect representation of humans. I love to recreate scenes and make things look realistic with LEGO. However, I found that when I started embracing the silliness of LEGO, my LEGO MOCs ended up looking better and more unique. I call this LEGOism. My personality was coming through more in them, and I found my style in the community. Embrace LEGO for what it is. It can be silly and cartoonish, and I like for that to come across in my MOCs, even if my builds are representing something more serious, like the Andor series. I like to add fun details and little Easter eggs. I always think of the LEGO video games I would play growing up that were recreations of popular movies and IPs, but had silly LEGO flair to them. In this Tatooine MOC, I had a guy eating some Calrissian Crunch cereal in the corner. I love how cute and funny it looks, but it doesn't take away from the MOC at all. I also have Obi-Wan here trying to buy something off the Jawas, but he brought an egg to bargain with, which is a callback or Easter egg to Season 1 of The Mandalorian. In this MOC, I have a Rebel pilot eating their lunch. I don't know why, but I just love this little detail. I use the same detail in my Yavin MOC. The 8th tip is story. People love a good story. In marketing and advertising, some of the best ads are when there is a narrative present to lock in viewers. This is something I like to emphasize when I'm building LEGO MOCs. When there's a story, people tend to look at the picture longer. They like to analyze and interpret what is going on. It helps people feel more connected to what you are building and forces them to use their own imagination. This can also help you when initially designing your MOC. When you have a story to tell, the scene begins to build itself, and all your creative decisions will circle back to how they are servicing the storytelling. Again, minifigures can be great and help you set your scenes to deeper the narrative of your MOCs. I think my Yavin MOC is a great example of this. Any Star Wars fan knows Yavin, so they already have a general idea of what is going on at this base. Looking at this MOC, we see a ship being torn apart. We see the pilot getting upset his ship is being parted out. We have some generals walking over here. We have technicians working on the ship. Again, one is taking a lunch break. A Mon Calamari janitor is sweeping the tarmac. There are endless possibilities as to what is happening in this scene, and I think I did a great job with the world building here. My 9th tip is building for photography. This is a really important one in my opinion. This tip is specifically for builders like me who showcase most of their work online, especially social media like Instagram. You should have a rough idea of how you're going to photograph the build before you even build it, or at least during the beginning stages of your build process. Knowing what angle your MOC will be seen online is really important. The parts of my MOCs that won't be seen are a great way for me to save on parts because it would be a waste to build up a bunch of detail in the back when I know it won't be seen in my pictures. I typically use that space to support my MOC and make it stronger for when I'm moving it around in the future. Sketching before you build also really helps prepare for how you're going to photograph in the future. My 10th tip is trust the process and build what you want. Don't force yourself to build things you don't want to. Build things that inspire you, and in doing so, this will inspire others. I was truly inspired by Andor, and it motivated me to build the series. Also remember while you are building that the MOC doesn't need to look exactly how you want it to. It is not the final end product. Just keep building. I'm personally not a fan of table scraps when people scrap an entire MOC halfway through the process. I like to follow through on MOCs and not start over. I definitely pivot at times, but I don't typically ever give up on a project. Most of the time, the builds that I feel like I struggle with during the process end up being some of my favorites because I had to stick with it. Endure the challenging creative process, and ultimately, I always learn something after a build that turned out different than I imagined it would. The MOCs you want to give up on are usually the ones that make you a better builder. I hope you enjoyed these tips. These tips were pretty general and broad, so if you have more specific questions for me, let me know down below in the comments and I can answer them in a future video. Thanks for watching.